death of failing a male-female relationship. Ironically enough, that's why I begin picking people up. I pick a girl up, and I'm going a little further each time. It's a daring kind of a thing, and this craving, this awful raging eating feeling is inside me. I could feel it consuming my insides, this fantastic passion.
Fantastic passion.
It's a good phrase, no?
He left us completely shook, yet in awe, when he portrayed Ed Kemper, the co-ed killer, on Netflix's true crime series, Mindhunter. On today's episode, we bring season 2 to one hell of a finale with our sit down with actor Cameron Britton of Netflix's hit series, Mindhunter, and upcoming series, The Umbrella Academy. We had a chance to sit down with Cameron and talk about the paranormal along with his first paranormal experience. We also tap into the world of true crime and what it was like to be in the mindset of a serial killer, Ed Kemper. We also discuss what it's like to be working with the gorgeous Jonathan Groff and cracking jokes with Mary J. Blige. So you definitely don't want to miss our season 2 finale with our sit down with Cameron Britton. So sit back and relax and grab a delicious slice of pizza or maybe some delicious egg salad sandwich as we bring season 2 to a close with episode 27, Getting Hollyweird with Cameron Britton.
So, if you've landed here at Hollyweird Paranormal, it's clear you're a fan of mystery, mayhem, and the unexplained in Hollywood true crime. I'm Dr. Shiloh, a former cop.
And I'm Dr. Scott, a former Hollywood entertainment professional. We're now both forensic psychologists working in Southern California.
Are you fascinated by the internal processes of criminals? Do you wonder, how could they do that?
In each episode of our podcast, LA Not So Confidential, we dissect the nexus where true crime, forensic psychology, and entertainment meet.
We'll serve up fascinating cases viewed through the lens of human behavior, delivered with our signature gallows humor.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play at LA Not So Confidential. We're ready for download and subscription. You can also follow us on Instagram at LA Not So Podcast and on Twitter at LA Not So Pod.
Come and join us for LA
Not So
Confidential.
Everything was right.
Welcome to musical theater.
All right, guys, so we're rolling. Hey, boo, hey. So we have a treat for you all. And it's been something that we've been, lightly posting on our social media. Bryce, do you want to give them a guess?
Do you just want me to sit here silently while they guess?
Yeah.
Guess now.
There you go.
That was a really good guess.
That was a really good guess. Guys,
You're wrong. That was a good guess.
Something very exciting is happening. We're having pizza, but we're having pizza with Cameron Britton from Mindhunter, guys.
Hey, hi.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Hollyweird Paranormal. So, of course, whenever we have someone on our podcast, we ask them, do you have a paranormal story you'd like to share as part of the initiation process?
I do have a paranormal, and I thought I didn't, but I do.
That's right. We are unearthing deep, dark secrets here.
Yeah, it's pulling out of my childhood psyche. So it's not scary. It's a fun one.
Love it.
When my parents divorced when I was 3, and so my dad was just one of those dads who's just moving from apartment to apartment, and one of the places he stayed with, he wasn't a wealthy man, but one of the places he stayed was with this guy, Hill. And I remember being kind of hiding behind my dad's legs and watching this dude, and then pretty instantly like, oh, you're not much to worry about. You're kind of adorable. But it was only something I had seen in movies like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Hill is very much like, what's up, dude? What's up, little bro? Like, come on in the house, little man. Like, straight up, like, it's a good day, man. What are we doing? What are we getting in? Were you watching cartoons? Like, that was Hill, long-haired.
Please tell me he had played the air guitar.
Probably. Yeah, it was all ripped jeans, like a straight stereotype. Like, you just couldn't, even as a kid, I was like, people aren't like you. My dad had just tickled him, but they were work buddies, and Hill had a girlfriend, and he lived in this old house. And when we got to the house, he told my brother, I'm the youngest, so my brother and sister and I, he said, all right, little dudes, I'm gonna warn you about this situation. Okay, the lady who lived here, old lady, happy lady, but she died here, like, in the house. And she's still here, like a ghost style, you know what I mean? So, like, she's not gonna bug you, she's not, like, rude or anything, but she's around, man. You gotta be careful. Like, at night, she'll make sounds and stuff. She sleeps in the kitchen, like, on the table. Like, I'll go in, like, to get a drink, and she'll be sleeping on the table. So, like, that's where she's at. So, what? You know, like, why is she sleeping on the fucking table?
There's no way to take that seriously.
I don't know. How could,
kitchen.
And we thought, to a degree, you know, we're kids, but, like, this has got to be a joke. And it's certainly not scary.
Especially
you know?
coming out of this dude.
It's hard to be scared of that. But sure, like, you know, they'd have weird little things, like, she didn't seem to like the girlfriend. So whenever she'd go out to the house, to the garden, whatever, she'd come back and the house would be locked. Like, the old lady had, like, just shut her out. So she just wasn't feeling it. But the one weird one, we were all sleeping, and we heard a glass breaking in the middle of the night. Everyone gets up and starts tracking it down. It was in the bathroom, and the bathroom window had been shattered. But it had been shattered from the inside out. All the glass was out in the garden. So that was, I couldn't explain that one. I went, oh, okay. And then my mom said she's seen a ghost up at my old family campus, actually on a podcast recently. What is that? There was a house that...
It's the ghost.
No, I will leave this apartment. No.
There was a house that old farmhouse, my family has old camping grounds. So that was built in the 1800s, that house. And I think maybe 4 or 5 family members have passed in it. And when you go in it, you know, even in the dead of summer, it's just cold in there. It was very strange. It's now really run down. I think we'll tear it down. But
no pun intended.
Yeah. And but they're like in the 30s, my great-grandfather's brothers, one murdered the other with an axe there. So it just feels dark and intense. My mom saw a ghost there. But those are really my own. I do have one that's not a ghost. That's a pretty funny story as well.
Please.
Oh,
if you guys
please
want
share.
me to keep
Go.
going.
Yeah, we are here for the booze, the true crime, and everything.
This one, Mom, if you're listening,
Hi.
It's time you know. She won't hear this.
Literally no.
So another house that was built in the late 1800s. And my family has a lot of like old sheep herding property.
Sure.
I've been in Northern California forever. Mm-hmm. We make wine up there. That's what we do. We're farmers. So I grew up in a vineyard. Not in the vineyard, in a house in the vineyard. And so it's a really old house I grew up in. And my great-great-grandfather built it, Paul Bondi. And my mom's she's just ghost. She's just all ghost. She's certain every house she's in, there's a ghost. So this one, of course, being her ancestor, Paul Bondi, she feels very cozy that he's around. You know, he's a bit of a jerk, but she likes that anyway. So, right, she just likes it. So, this would be it'd be over 15 years ago, I'd say. Not quite. My brother, the older brother, is the black sheep of the family, and he eventually, you know, even in high school, my mom said, "You can't live here anymore. You just pissing me off so much." They're great now. They're great. Close. Anthony has really came around. But when she was out of town, he'd go back to the house and throw huge ragers, and then sometimes clean up, sometimes not. In this case, I think he only had a handful of folks over. I wasn't there. And they went to bed. And one of the crazier people he'd hang out with, one of the weirder bridge folks, was this guy named Pat. And Pat would just he'd just find himself in the nuttiest situations. He woke Anthony up at 3:30 in the morning and said, "Hey, man, I made a mess. And to this day, nobody knows what Pat was doing or why. But Anthony goes and follows Pat to the laundry room. It was connected to the house, but just outside of it, and opens the door. And the laundry room is all white. I mean, it has been covered from top to bottom in fire extinguisher powder. And in center is this smoking, smoldering, half-destroyed 5-gallon bucket that he had lit on fire. We don't know for what or for why. This guy was a nut. Again, my brother doesn't hang out with this guy anymore, but my brother used to get into some nutty things. And being drunk and high and tired, he just said, I'm just not going to deal with this. And he went to bed. And then he forgot about it. And so he didn't cover his tracks. And a couple months later, he happened to come by the house, say hi to Mom. They're sitting on the patio drinking a glass of wine. And my mom mentioned this situation with this burnt bucket. And it came back to him like, oh my God, I'm about to be busted. You're about to come clean. Like, I know you just came to my house, burn a bucket, and then, put it out with this fire extinguisher. But she surprised him by saying that she thought that Paul Bondi, her great-great-grandfather, had saved the house, that she believes that the sun was coming through. You're learning more about my mom now. The sun was coming through the glass in the laundry room in such a way that it created what a magnet does with the sun. And just burnt this bucket in the middle of the room. And then that Paul Bondi had picked up the fire extinguisher and handled the business and put it out. And, you're scot-free. You're not. Your mom wants to believe that her ancestors watching after her like totally fine giving her that room instead of finding out her eldest is once again a disappointment. So he just nods like, yeah, totally, that must be it.
He's like chugging the wine.
And again, this is 2 months later. Again, he says she throws him another gift. She says, "Do you want to see it?" And leads him to the room and opens it and it's still covered in the powder, and the bucket is still sitting in the room, and she's leaning on the door and just looking in, and she's all wistful. She says, "Sometimes I just get a chair and a glass of wine, and I just sit here and I just look at it and know that Paul's watching me."
Oh my gosh. She comes in with a glass of wine. She pours a little one down for the homie, and she throws like rose petals around.
Exactly. And Anthony's just nodding like, yeah, wow.
100%.
And secretly, he's, holding it in, suppressing laughter. And in his brain, it's just call Cameron. I must tell him that we got another mom story.
Oh my God.
She's just so fun, goofy. She is so connected with ghosts and things.
Does she always call you and say, "Cameron, I just saw a ghost"?
Yes. Yeah, we visited. She was in a new place. We visited, and she says it smells like we were in the guest room. She's like, "Okay, over here's the kitchen, and then we have this upstairs area, and that's the guest room. Sometimes it smells like cigarettes because there's a ghost who smokes in there." And then she keeps walking, like, "Okay, well, let's back up. Let's back up." And she's just certain that he's, I don't know, this ghost is walking down the street. It's like, that looks like a good house to take a good ghost smoke in. And he pulls out his ghost cigarettes, which smell like, real cigarettes, apparently.
Wow.
And then he has a little puff in the guest room on occasion, and then
I feel like after this episode, like, children across America will be like, no, the ghost did it, just to, like, see
Exactly.
if it will work to get them out of trouble. Because that is the fact that she gave him that gift of like, oh, it's a ghost, and he like, yep, take that out.
Take that out.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. If your mom's into it. And I feel like women are more into the paranormal. I think that I assume it's because they're more empathetic and nurturing. And
yes, and
connected.
we're into the true crime and everything. Yeah. We're into all of it.
Yeah,
Trump did put give us a good label. We're nasty women. So
nasty women. Yeah. But I wonder what that is. Why they? I had a roommate who, she said she has had a poltergeist her whole life.
Wow.
What?
Yeah. It scratched the eyes out of a picture of her boyfriend. I'm pretty sure the boyfriend probably just did it, but...
Blame it on the ghost.
Poltergeist, ex-boyfriend,
yes,
potato.
There you go.
It's a mixed bag.
Cast them out.
This is interesting. Blame it on the ghost.
I think in general, and this is just, we've been now 12 minutes in, it's time for a feminist rant from me, I think.
Go right ahead.
I lasted as long as I could. I think in general, men are told not to let anything be unexplainable. Mm-hmm. I think we kind of, in general, are more black and white anyway. At least I think in very black and white terms. But then on top of that, we are told, don't buy into, anything that's weird, anything that's, different or, unexplainable. And whether that's because of, very strict gender norms or whatever you want to call it, I think also part of it is that, when you were saying, I think women are more open, and when they see and experience things, they don't shut that down. Whereas I think most of the time, the people that we talk to who are non-believers are men, and they're just no, that wasn't real, that didn't happen, right. Or I can't explain it by X, Y, or Z.
And we're also told to not connect. Mm-hmm. Don't connect, in general. Mm-hmm. You can't be too close to your parents or, friends or whatever it is. And I'd imagine just being more open to ghosts would make ghosts more open to you.
Totally.
I think there's a reason. I mean, it could be as scientific and easy, speaking from the man's black and white brain of, I met a dog the other day who was terrified of me just because I'm a male. I'm like, oh, sexist dog. But it's, it probably had a master who was male that heard it. But women are just better with pets, totally. And it could be because they're less threatening, but I like to believe it may be that. But it is also that there's just something in the air that women are more willing to connect with you and be open with you. So I think that ghosts could absolutely pick up on that and be more willing to interact.
I agree. We do open ourselves a little more, and I feel like we're more brave than most men. Mm-hmm. I mean, we do put ourselves out there, and we are in some ways we are like a protector. And I know that men are raised to be protectors, but women are also there to be protectors as well, and they're there to protect their children, to protect their own, and whatnot. So I believe that that's another reason why we're so open to the paranormal. Mm-hmm. We're so open and more in tune with and obsessed with true crime as well. Because that was another article I was reading a couple of months ago, why women were so obsessed with true crime and serial killers, and it was the same reason. We're more nurturing, we're protectors.
I have never thought about that. You're absolutely right. Most of the true crime fans I know are female.
Oh yeah,
that is so interesting.
When I went to see Hollywood and Crime during the LA Film Fest, they brought up this amazing question: why do you think women are so obsessed with true crime and serial killers? And they even brought up the show Dark Tourist, where this guy went to this place where they gave Dahmer tours.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Dahmer tours, and there was a group of women. It was majority of the group was women, and there was a group of 7 women that were there on a bachelorette party.
Wow.
And they took him to the sites where he picked up where he was born, and then they walked to the site where he picked up his victims. It was from a club, and they went to the apartments where, the victims lived, which I thought was...
And his victims weren't female, which is really interesting.
Exactly. Huh. Yeah. So, yeah, that's another thing, too, that I find so interesting as well, is like, why are women also very obsessed with true crime and serial killers and murders and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had a few ask me to marry him because of my
I was just going to ask you.
Swoon, yes.
Tell us. Go ahead. Like,
It was not when that show was dropping. I was like, oh, I'm going to be a real panty dropper after this. I didn't see that coming. Though one fellow did call me a very hot bear. He
Oh
asked
yeah,
me
I
if
could
was
see that. Yeah.
single and what my deal was, and I said I'm married. But if I'm not, maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
I'll think about it.
See, look, you're already keeping yourself open. Next,
Yeah.
a ghost is gonna hit on you. That's the
Yeah.
only next. That is the
That's
next
it.
logical step, and there are no other options.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, wouldn't a ghost hitting on you be great?
I know.
As I
If it was
cringe.
the ghost of James
Yeah,
Dean.
right. And no
Yeah.
one else.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I think too. It's funny because I actually was introduced. I had never even heard of like the true crime genre, really, because we weren't really allowed to watch like very much television growing up, and so that like concept didn't really register for me. And it was my one roommate, and she introduced me to the sort of, obviously, like, I think almost everyone as an adult has heard of My Favorite Murder if you listen to podcasts, and like
Of course.
that was like my intro into this like massive world. I had no idea, and I was very late to the party. It wasn't like,
Oh,
like my
really?
roommate was like a day one listener for them. Excuse me, karma. I'm choking on my own karma. And I had no concept of like how massive the world was, and so I'm like
it's
listening
huge.
to these episodes, like, oh, this is great. And they were actually at the live show on Halloween as well, and so just like
Wait,
that.
this Halloween?
Yeah, you were there.
The one I was at?
I just
Yeah,
didn't-
you were.
I don't
one
know if
of
I
the
can say it or
guests.
not. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was like, I think this sounds familiar.
We are 2 degrees of separation away from, Georgia Herstark and Kieran Kilgraff right here.
Yeah, and so again, like, I had no idea how massive, because like I would listen to the episodes and be like, this is so interesting, this is so fascinating, but it was a woman who like cued me into this entire genre, and then it's been like so fulfilling. I love it now, but I definitely was not like an original fan technically. Thanks, women.
A woman that popped your cherry, Bryce. Right there. Your true crime cherry.
Goodbye. Thank you. This has been lovely.
I've always been fascinated in serial killers. I used to, like, as a teenager, I would explain it that I just thought that, like, passion has always fascinated me. It doesn't matter if it's about buttons, but for something, because they're not crazy, they know what they're doing. So for that to still not stop you, to know the ramifications of murdering someone, for you get put away, but for that still to be something that you just need to do, and then you do it, and you're like, I knew I needed I need to do that again. And then, as you see with killers, we have pretty all but proven they never stop.
Wow. Yeah.
They may take time off, but consistently, the interval between kills gets quicker. Kemper was that way. Ed Kemper was, it just started getting more and more common for him to go out and kill. He had to he admits that. It just, the time in between, and it started with fantasies being enough, and then the fantasies needed to be stronger, and then that was enough, and then he needed to play killer, like he'd pick up somebody, in his early 20s, probably 2 or 3 years, he would pick up hitchhikers and just keep a gun under the seat. And that was enough to get, just to know I could pull it out and kill you. That was enough. That satiated it. And then after that, no, I need the gun, under my leg. And then eventually, then he just had to start killing people.
Wow.
But that, I guess it can't really, that was a young me calling it a passion. It's more of a compulsion or something.
And an addiction too, I feel like there's that, it's such a similar cycle to the drug use cycle where you have to hit it harder and faster
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
Because you're chasing that high of the first
Right.
hit, essentially.
Right.
Damn.
And yeah, so I guess they've always fascinated me, particularly serial killers. Mass murderers, I can do without. But I've just always found that to be interesting. It probably started with Zodiac. I was watching a documentary as a little boy because we had one TV channel and they decided to play that documentary. And then it ends and he doesn't get caught.
No.
And I don't think I had ever known that. I don't think I had ever experienced that information before. Like, oh, sometimes the bad guy gets away, and like that level of bad guy, an infamous, you know, he was national news.
Yeah.
And they never caught him. Though, if you watch the Zodiac movie, which is David Fincher, same guy from Mindhunter.
So good.
He's certainly fascinated with serial killers. They pretty much spell it out. Like, this wasn't some sort of mastermind, which no killers are, you know, the Hannibal Lecter or John Doe from Seven, another Fincher movie, which he regrets that bad guy because they're never these genius, you know, opera expert people. This guy wasn't that. Arthur Lee Allen, he was pretty easy to catch. It was these counties screwing it up. Oh, you know, you can see Zodiac yourself, but it was interesting. That movie wasn't. You expect to see a lot of the killer, and it very small.
Barely
amount.
see him. Yeah.
It's about the bumblefuck. That is that system. You know, pre 1977, we didn't have the term serial killer. We didn't know what these were.
No.
We didn't know how to defend against it. So that was late 60s. So it was a bumblefuck.
Yeah.
That is true. We just had this discussion, just a brief discussion about that turn in 1969, especially after the Sharon Tate and LaBianca murders that were committed by Charles Manson's family, and that was just the turning point of like a serial killer. And I guess can we go into Mindhunter? Can we start talking about more about that? Because I'm sure people are like, get him to talk about Mindhunter, please.
Well,
we do not give a fuck about you two.
And Jonathan Groff.
Yeah, we can talk all about it. I can talk about Groff for the rest of this thing.
Great.
I'm in love
Great.
with him. I'm just
I just want everyone to know that we touched Cameron professionally, so it's in a way like we're 1 degree away from touching Jonathan Groff.
Oh, I just assumed I was married to Jonathan Groff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's how it works, right?
It's Hollywood rules.
Yes. Oh, thank God. Jonathan, I live in the valley. Stop by whenever.
I will pass that on.
He's like, I'm filling the paperwork for a restraining order as we speak. Yep, that checks out. Yep.
So I'm not allowed to talk about, you know, however many seasons they do. I can't mention whether or not I'm in them till they're released. But I do know from talking to the folks and stuff, and then what they've released. There's some killers I can't talk about, but I know that they're interviewing Charles Manson in season 2.
That old so-and-so.
That old son of a bitch. And it's played by Damon Harriman. And he's an Australian fellow who is short like Charlie and kind of looks like Charlie. And they got the makeup artist from The Darkest Hour, just won Best Makeup, the Academy Awards.
Oh, yeah.
He was also the makeup artist for The Grinch with Jim Carrey.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
But
my God.
he didn't do a movie in between. He retired in Gary Oldman got him to come out and do, you know, his Churchill makeup.
Wow.
And now he's out of retirement, so he did the Mindhunter makeup. This man is going to look like Charles Manson and talk like Charles Manson.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing and exciting. The other focus, you know, Holden Ford and Bill Tench are now taking their knowledge and not just spending their time interviewing. Now they're going to take it to the streets and see if they can apply their new studies. And they're going to hope to track down the Atlanta child murderer.
Oh my God.
Which is probably one you guys know, at least you know, but most folks do not and have not heard of Wayne Williams.
Yes, there was a podcast dedicated to it. It was called Atlanta Monster.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, have you not hit
so
her?
good.
It is just take the time to listen to it.
And heartbreaking too. Just
It
so
is.
again, like what you were saying, just like it just feels like so possible to solve it so much earlier, and you just think like this has to stop, and like surely it can't go on or get any worse. And
and it was, and then there was so much confusion, like
Yes.
which are this person killing, because it was, I mean, sometimes it was like 4 times a week there'd be, so John Douglas, the Holden 4, the real man, he ran that case, you know.
Wow.
Once the police were just screwing it up so much, they eventually called the FBI in, which is a win-win for them, because if the FBI figures it out, then everyone's happy, and if they fail, they can blame it on the FBI. Police often hate the FBI.
They do. Yeah.
So John Douglas, and I'm sure Mindhunter will cover it extensively and accurately, but he was a part of catching the dude, interrogating the dude, and then part of the prosecution. How to best, I don't want to give it away, but it's like a movie. You watch it like, this has to be fiction. The way in which he helped show the prosecutors how to get Wayne Williams behind bars in the courtroom itself. And that's really, you know, the FBI profiling unit, and credit to them. They're not just catching these guys. They're interrogating these guys, and they're helping courts put these guys behind bars. They help show you, you know, say a serial killer killed 8 people with a knife and 1 with a gun. The court will often say, well, we're not going to try to put him up for the gun killing because it doesn't fit with his MO or his signature. And an FBI agent can help explain, no, this can still be, the motives can still be the same. Just because it's not the same signature doesn't mean, you know, Kemper killed from strangulation, stabbing, and shooting.
Wow. And I think too, it's so interesting. You had kind of touched on it, but we didn't know how to defend. I think is such a powerful statement that you said, of like, America, I think in general, was so innocent, and like all of the 50s, and then there was sort of, I don't even know what the right word is, but like a rebellion of sorts in the 60s because of that sort of like flower child culture, but it still was very naive, even though they were, quote, rebelling. It was like, I would not do many, like hitchhiking, all of these festivals, all of the free love, free drugs, like those were very common, naive practices that
sleeping with your doors unlocked.
Yeah,
you know?
and it was all just a hotbed. And I love that thought of like, there are people who were like, no, we have to catch up with the people who are taking advantage of this like idyllic culture that we lived in at the time. It makes me sad, but I just love it so much.
It is interesting you say that, and it was one of the parts of Mindhunter that was the most fascinating to me as far as Kemper goes. It was briefly mentioned in the show, and had they spent more time on it, maybe you guys remember this part, but Kemper discusses what it was like to go and he killed his grandparents at 15, and he went to a mental institution for 6 years. He came out at 21, and when he came out, everything he knew and understood about the world was a very 50s style. I mean, this is mid-60s, so it was still 50s parents and upbringing. And when he got out, everyone his age was no longer straight-laced. They were loose and free and wild, and he could not have felt more out of place trying to, you know, go on a date with a girl, or, you know, of course his mother is in his ear saying, you'll never be with a girl. That was one of her things. Allegedly, of course. It's impossible to know serial killers are just lying for their goddamn... He seems to be one of the more candid ones. But, yeah, I just found that fascinating, that not only was he 6'9", you know, and felt enormously out of place. You know, he was 6 foot by the time he was 12.
Jesus.
And,
oh my God.
Yeah. And so he felt really out of place, and then, you know, you get these wild women his age, and he just felt so uncomfortable and out of place. And he was weirdly polite to women. The killing was not the part that interested him. He wanted he wasn't crazy. He knew that they weren't going to play house with him, so he'd kill them and then get to play house and pretend that they were dating. And so the killing part, and it's mentioned again in the shows, let's get it over quickly. I kind of was frustrating because he'd see movies and think, you just shoot someone and they die instantly. But that's not the case. You stab someone, they die. It takes a long time for them to just leak out. And so, he tried to get it over as quickly as possible so he could play boyfriend and girlfriend. But he mentioned, and we don't mention it in the show, I feel like it was a missed opportunity. He would...
Dear Netflix.
I
have some thoughts.
I'll still email David Fincher and
That's
be like,
amazing.
I just read something interesting about a serial killer. You should Holden Ford should. But he would, he was once stabbing a woman in the chest or towards the torso, and he wouldn't stab them in the breast because his hand might touch their breast, and that was inappropriate. So he aimed to the belly because he didn't want to, he even said one point he accidentally touched a breast of a woman he was killing, and he apologized to her while he was killing. He said something like, "Oop, sorry."
Wow.
Just a weirdly polite. I think he's that anomaly. Part of the fascination with serial killers is like he doesn't care about human life, but he cares about human perception. Like how are you willing to take someone's life away from their families and everything, but you still care about what people think of you? It's an enigma to me.
It's a compartmentalization to its like nth degree. Like for him to be able to separate those two things, like one of the utmost respect while also like the utmost violation, is mind-blowing.
It is.
And he knew it. He knew he was good at it. I mean, he had the cops fooled. He'd go to the cop bars and chat with them. And they were buddies.
Wow.
And that's what he was trying to do with Jonathan Groff's character. And my biggest question for you is, has he ever reached out to you or tried to reach out to you?
No.
I thought you meant Jonathan Groff, and I was like,
Oh, that too.
what?
He can reach out to us as well.
I text Groff, and maybe a few days later, he texts me back.
Hilarious.
He's busy, though. I get it.
Whatever.
Doesn't break my heart every time.
He's planning our wedding. It's very serious and formal, yes.
But I guess I speak for a lot of our listeners. You just completely exemplified him so well. You really did. And I know that there were a few questions that we had a couple of our listeners sent to us. One was, how did you prepare for his role, and how did it affect you mentally and physically and emotionally? And the second one was, Ed Kemper, did he ever try to reach out to you or communicate with you?
He has yet to try to reach out. I've spoken with a couple people who used to work at the California Medical Facility, but none that work there now. So I don't really know if he's seen the show or his perception. I've been asked a lot if I met him, and I didn't, and I wouldn't. There's like 8 reasons why. Easy ones, like I'd be just as scared as anyone. A moral one, I just think I might kind of sort of be there to look at the beast in the cage, and that's really inappropriate. I know a part of me that would just be fascinated to see it's like people would go to public lynchings and things. Just a weird, that's why we slow down at wrecks on the freeway. We're just weird humans. So I don't like that part of me. And then I do think, I just guess that he would get his rocks off. I mean, he would just really enjoy an actor traveling to him to the promised land to, suckle from his knowledge and all that.
Yeah.
It got a little too graphic, Cameron. You can describe it differently.
Nope.
I'm sorry
That's the
about
only
that.
way to describe it.
Everyone's
Like you
imagining me
said.
nursing off of Ed Kemper now. Just like an Ed Kemper
Fan,
on an Ed
the
Kemper.
fan fiction alone is just pouring out.
Well, it's like you said, it's human perception. I mean, that's what I'm sure he would have wanted to know what you thought about him as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I get that question a lot. But yeah, I still think, I often think like, one day it's just going to be a letter in the mail, and I'll have it from him. But no, he hasn't. And I know he stopped correspondence with all his pen pals. He just doesn't feel like they truly, genuinely want to be his friend. I don't know about all of them, but many of them. And then the other question was if it what it did to my psyche.
Yes.
Well, it was 9 months.
Wow.
From beginning to end in character. I turned down every other audition because there were months in between, but I would just stay in that headspace.
Wow.
I can look at it now and break it down pretty easily. It was confusing and scary at the time, but yeah, I had some dark thoughts and I couldn't shake them.
Wow.
And you know, my wife would sometimes I wouldn't be able to look at her. I'd say I just need to be in another room. You know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was really, you know, my mom came to visit and she didn't know it at the time. But when she left, I mean, I was really emotional when she left because I just had these dark impulses and things. I think what it is fascinating or boring, depends on who you are. It's quite scientific. When you enjoy something, endorphins are released. That's how addiction to alcohol happens. You know, every time that liquor hits your tongue, endorphins are released. So your body wants more of that. So in this case, I enjoy acting. Endorphins are released when that happens. My character has dark thoughts. So my body eventually started producing dark thoughts to produce endorphins. Wow. So once I sort of realized that, we're done shooting and the character won't leave me alone, and I realized, oh, this is just like Pavlov or some shit, then I it almost helped. Like I just knew, well, then just kick the habit. You know, it's just like any habit you need to kick. And I've been better since. I just, you know, I'm back to, you know, being silly. So, yeah. So any other? I've hardly ever get to talk to fans. I love talking about Mindhunter. So.
Those two questions were from Flower Mama 5
Hi.
and Crunchy Gordita Taco Bell Waitress. So
That sounds so good.
It's a title there.
here's another one. This is from Echo Boy number 5, Adrian Robles. He's one of our mega fans, and I have one right here. I had them on my favorites.
All I can think about now is a gordita. Just saying.
Let's see. According to Adrian, have you changed anything about the presentation of Edmund Kemper? I mean, is there a detail that was unique that you added to your presentation of Kemper himself? And the third one, how was your mood on set during scenes? Peaceful, jovial, eerie, etc. FYI, just let him know that he is a freaking outstanding actor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was from Adrian.
Thanks, Adrian. So, as far as how I was on set, pretty lighthearted. You know, Groff and I were singing a lot of show tunes.
Stop.
Yeah.
That is my dream.
I mean,
You just gave Bryce a lot of life.
and by sing it together, I mean, I'd start absentmindedly humming a bar. He'd come in, make it sound good, and I'd stop.
Yeah.
You know, okay, well, we'll let him go from here. And the Bill Tench, the gruff older detective, would you believe it? The dude can croon like you wouldn't believe.
know.
It's this gravelly, it's so beautiful. His mother was in Julie Wilson. She died pretty recently. His mother was an old cabaret star. I think she's in Singing in the Rain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was a star in her own right, and lounge singer. So we'd all sing, you know, a lot of light jokes. Everyone's working seriously and working seriously and frantically. Fincher has a very tight ship, but he lets actors do whatever they want because that's what actors need to be able to do, whatever they need to do to get into character. Some of us need to joke and keep it light. If it was heavy, then I'm taking my job too seriously for Kemper, and it just, you know, I needed a joke or two. There was once or twice that I didn't feel like that coffee scene where I'm making him coffee. I just had the worst day. That was my second day on set, and I just thought I was doing the worst job. as an actor. First day felt fine. And so at 1 minute I went into the corner and just sort of talked to myself for a while to get where I needed to go. Groff was very helpful in that regard afterwards. I called him, was like, yeah, man, I know, as you know, what a bad job I did today. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're full of it, or not full of it, but you're way off base, man. We could have used any of those takes. So he was very, very helpful in that. I owe him. It was my first guest star. I was so nervous, and Groff was just, he could not have asked for a better partner for this stuff. He's such a giving actor. What were the other questions?
What did you bring to Kemper's character?
Oh, well, a lot of folks say I was a lot like him, and I didn't really focus on being a lot like him. I noticed he keeps his glasses half an inch down his nose, and it's weird when I do it. I kind of fall into him. We have some similarities, and I stole a mannerism or a vocal inflection on occasion. And more importantly, I wanted his essence. It's an impossible thing to equate, but I try to get that. After that, I mean, it was all me. It was all do your prep and just show up and be honest. Like, yes, Kemper is arrogant. Okay, well, I'm gonna be arrogant, but what's my version of arrogant? There was a lot of that kind of thing. The speech. I mean, I kept getting nervous. Like, am I talking just too slow? Is it getting too slow? And Fincher's famous for going fast. But no, it just felt right. I mean, it was very instinctual preparation. So I think that's the, not to get too actory on you guys. You guys are here for freaky stuff.
It's fine.
I was literally getting ready to ask you what your method was, or what you used. So
the method? We already know how you feel about that.
I do not love the method. That's true. No, the reason I was going to ask is because, like, when you said with the glasses, that's very like Chekhovian, of like physical from the outside in, and like what that triggers on you, and like
right. I think acting is a hodgepodge of many schools of thought. I think typically you end up with your own. You just
100%.
Start figuring it out by yourself.
I love that.
I really think that's what acting is. But my best example, because I'm playing a real person, in a lot of the things a lot of those lines are taken straight from interviews you can watch of his on YouTube. In fact, someone did a split of me and him. And you're seeing it's the same lines.
Yeah.
But there's something like, there's this movie Frost versus Nixon. The Frank Langella plays Nixon. He was nominated for an Academy Award, and it's the most fascinating movie. These interviews, they're real interviews, and they're very famous interviews in the 70s where Nixon finally got him to admit about Watergate and apologize. In the only way Nixon, in the very Nixon-y way.
Oh, I remember
but
that.
It was a big deal. And the movie is just gripping. And then you go to watch those actual interviews, and it's like, watching paint dry. And that's sort of our weird job as actors. Like, what is naturalism and what is realism? Naturalism is being actually just real life. Realism is that sort of interpretation of it. Kind of sounds like the same thing. I don't know why they chose those words to describe it, but where do you get too interesting till it's not believable, or where do you get too natural till it's boring? It's a wide line, but there's a line, and it's impossible to describe. I think you just know when you know. Like we mentioned Hannibal Lecter earlier. You watch that movie, you never met a human like that, and you never will. It's not realistic in any capacity. Anthony Hopkins has admitted that. It's this is a theatrical performance, but we all buy it. We all believe it. We're all there for it. Mindhunter was fighting against that. They wanted to show the true horror is that these people are like everyone else. But that was a thing I kept asking myself when shooting it. And it's kind of weird to see the split on YouTube, because I do look really theatrical next to real life.
Sure.
But when you watch the show, most people feel like I'm pretty realistic. So it's an interesting thing.
I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with whether or not you would ever visit him. It's this weird, why would he get any of the glory, if you will, from like your work in essence? Like, you have created this, you have like made this character, and I feel like in order like to visit him would be like giving him some sort of shared credit or like power, I think, in a weird way.
I can't remember what movie it was for, but there was an actor back in the day that went, I think it was one of the Charles Manson films, but he went to meet with Charles Manson just to prep for the role.
Yeah,
I mean,
some
people.
folks
very
do,
common, yeah.
Holt, who plays Bill Tench, the other detective, he's been trying to meet some of these folks. Groff he's not interested. Holt wanted recently. He said, "Why don't you, me, and Groff go meet Kemper?" I don't want to go. I was so glad Groff said he didn't want to. Exactly. Let's go to Vacaville. We can see all the sights. But yeah, honestly, one of my concerns was the show could come out and make Kemper more of a household name, and I just don't want him to get that sort of recognition. People often focus on the killer and not the victims. It's like the whole Breaking Bad moment when Hanks told the son, Walt Jr., that everybody knows Pablo Escobar, but nobody knows the names of the guys who caught him. John Douglas, again, the fellow who actually is, holding forward the real life man, still alive. I was watching a director's commentary on Silence of the Lambs, and they had him be a part of it. And he had mentioned, just speaking on victims versus killers and the focus, when he goes, he's invited to executions. And when he goes, he makes sure before he walks into that room to pull out the file and study the victims, look at their case, look at what happened to them, look at those photos. So when he walks in that room, he's walking in for them and not for the killer. That I know it's their execution, but this day is not about them. It's about these victims. And it helps him sort of feel a truth and a justice behind death penalty, which is important. It's important that people remember that folks who, I don't want to get too political, but
you are in the very right place.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
There are two things to me that are polarizing, and both sides are right. And one is abortion, and one is death penalty. I'm actually pro death penalty, and I'm pro choice, but I understand the other side, like why you would want someone to die just because they harmed another person, or why we would be able to choose that, or why you should think it's okay to take a baby's life, it's a fetus's life before they're born. That both those sides make complete sense to me. But it's important to remember that either side of those fights is about compassion. And in the death penalty one is very much that. There's not this vindictive good, hang 'em high often. It's this is for the victims in a way. You don't want to speak for them. We can go forever on these. These are two debates that no one can ever win, because they both, sometimes, there are things that are, both folks are right. Yeah. It depends on their intentions, I suppose. Some people, you never know what their intentions are, but if it's just a pure, opinion of a side, I can see them both.
Yeah.
Tangenting, aren't I?
I love it.
I know.
But yeah, John Douglas.
We got deep.
I liked his thought on the victims there.
We have another question. This is where's it from? This is from Cicely 505, and she wants to know, what were you doing before Mindhunter?
Hilarious. Yes.
And if you can please marry her.
I am married already, so.
Polygamy.
I know, it's fine.
But I am part Sicilian, so good on you there. Okay, so I answered the Mary question.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What were you doing before Mindhunter?
What was I doing before Mindhunter? Well, I was a special needs preschool teacher for 8 years.
Wow.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was acting on the side with my friends at a theater, and I just couldn't lie to myself anymore. I loved working with the kids, but I was working with the kids to be entertaining for them.
Wow.
You know, you're standing in front of class dancing and singing. I just realized I'm just supplementing, and it's wearing thin, and my real calling is this whole acting thing. So in 2013 I started auditioning. My first booking was a movie called Camp Dakota with
Yes, I saw that. I love it. Mamrie Hart.
Hilarious.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Oh, and Grace
And,
Helbig. I love that
Helbig
trio.
and Mamrie.
Oh,
Yeah. And it was fun. And then I was on a show on Freeform, formerly known as ABC Family, called Stitchers. I did that for 3 years. And in the second season of that, I booked Mindhunter. And now because of Mindhunter, I shot something that just came out this weekend, Girl in the Spider's Web.
Yes.
I shot that early in the year, in the winter, in Germany. And then I've spent 6 months in Canada this year shooting something called Umbrella Academy, which comes out on February 15th for Netflix. It's
Love it.
a superhero movie, comic book
Cool.
show.
and you're shooting that with a very awesome woman.
Yes, my partner in crime in that show is Mary J. Blige.
Oh my god.
Yes.
We're good
They're
buddies.
buddies.
Yeah, that's my,
That is-
my
Like
sweet-
I die when he told me that.
I just feel like you're living like all of my like gay musical theater like fantasies. Like I just want to sing with Jonathan. I want to do a lot of other things too, but I mostly want to sing with him, and I just need Mary J. Blige to harmonize with me, and
That's
like
fun.
Right.
you're living my whole world, Cameron. It's great.
That is amazing. When we were waiting for Bryce, Cameron and I were talking about it, and I was like, "How is she? Is she?
How is she?
Just like I believe that she's a part of the Illuminati because she does not age at all. Like she is like
She's like
gorgeous.
the most fascinating woman you could possibly meet. Nobody's lived, hardly anyone in the world's lived a life like that.
Mm-hmm.
She spent the first 20 years of her life in Yonkers, New York, in the slums of danger, of terrifying horribleness. And then she spent 10 years straight as a superstar. And then 15 years in a suffocating marriage with the infamously shit fellow.
That's a different episode.
And now she's just Mary, and she's had this just fascinating life. When you meet her, you see all three, especially the first two. You see this girl from Yonkers,
Wow.
you know, but then you see this superstar at times, and all underneath is just this big kid. And if you don't know her, you know, she may sit in the corner. She's just kind of quiet and keeps to herself. I think the perception of her line of work of hip hop stars is maybe standoffish or divas or whatever. So if she's on set, people just don't approach her, which is their loss, because she's, once you get her to laugh once, then
That's it.
that's all she wants to do.
I love
is
that.
just
Oh my god.
chuckle and giggle and be silly.
Braid my hair. Yes.
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 Do
Go
you guys
on.
like text each other pie recipes or something? I wonder. Like, Mary, it's cardamom.
Oh my god.
It was cardamom.
That's hilarious.
Neither of us cook.
No.
not cookers, us.
No. That's fine.
We're drinkers, but we're not
I
cookers.
like that.
Can you tell our listeners what to expect in Umbrella Academy? Like, what's the storyline?
Sure. Umbrella Academy is about 7 children who are raised. They're all adopted, and they're surrogate fathers. Is that the correct word?
It is now.
It is, yeah. That's how words work. You just they're pluribian father, if you will, to turn a new phrase.
Yes.
He raised them to be fighting machines since they were, 5 years old,
Wow.
and
Oh my god.
and he was a pretty terrible dad. So they become incredibly dysfunctional, and now they're in their early 30s. Most of them are out of the crime-fighting game. Their superpowers are just things they keep to themselves. Events force them to be a family again and come back together and try to save the day. And my character, Hazel, and Mary's character, Cha-Cha, are partners who we are hired by this organization as assassins to stop the good guys. We travel through time to do so. That's our thing. We're time traveling assassins together. And I actually I think that's about all I'm allowed to say at this point. But
is this animated? Is it live action?
No, it's live action.
Love it.
It feels, I'd say, if anything, it feels like Watchmen.
Okay.
It's that superhero world that we all get excited about because it's offbeat. It doesn't feel like the others. When Guardians of the Galaxy came out, or Deadpool, or the third Thor, these seem like they're just a little unique and they're a little having a little fun, and that's this one for sure. It's got Ellen Page in it, and
oh my God! Wow.
and Robert Sheehan, who's huge in Europe. I'm thinking he may follow suit out here.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of other folks. Another Hamilton member, actually, Emmy Raver.
Oh, wow.
Is in it. It's Umbrella Academy.
Coming soon to a Netflix near you.
I know. I wonder if you guys had jokes on set, like, hey, Mary, you want to go assassinate this pizza at Crafts or something?
Yeah, I'd mess with Mary a little bit. Like
it seems like a fine line, yeah.
So Mudbound, she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. That's a Netflix movie.
Yeah, someone else was also nominated not too long ago.
We were Netflix nomination buddies.
Yeah.
And thank you. And then she was also nominated for the original song for Mudbound. It was Mighty River. And we were doing a scene by a river, and I kept bringing up the Mighty River. It just makes her, she just cracks up. She's like, hey, usually you shouldn't make me laugh, but you make me laugh. I likes it. And then, once in a while, I'd tell her that the sound of the rain against my window pane slowly driving me insane.
Yes.
It cracked her up, too.
Oh, my God.
That makes me laugh.
That's so good.
You trying to find a way to segue, please, some rain hit the window right now. Something to give me a reason to say this.
Lord, I don't ask for much.
Yeah, a couple jokes like that.
I love that.
That is so cool.
And then she hadn't seen Mindhunter till we started working together. She calls Ed Kemper the weirdest thing. She calls him Uncle Eddie. I don't
know why.
I don't know why. But
we all have that crazy uncle.
She goes, Cameron, Uncle Ed. She goes, listen. She always says, listen. She goes, listen. Uncle Eddie is so fucked up. Uncle Eddie is so... Why are you calling him Uncle Eddie, Mary? She goes, I don't know. He's Uncle Eddie.
Yeah. Okay. She might want to unpack that at some point.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I don't know if it's
Think about it, Gert.
Freudian or what it is.
That's amazing.
I know.
I want shirts made with that on it.
He's somebody's
Copyright.
uncle.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, bless.
Well, we're about to end this little episode, guys. We just want to thank Cameron.
Thank you so much.
For coming on our podcast, for sitting down and drinking LaCroix, eating pizza with us. It's been a pleasure.
I keep turning my head to burp. It's
Yeah, it's great.
I'm sorry I tangented so much.
No.
I feel it's like it's an hour. You guys want to keep talking?
Oh, if you want to keep on talking, we could keep on talking.
This has been like one of our more focused episodes.
It really is.
Yeah.
You're sitting here barefoot, and we're shoeless, and we're
I only went on one feminist rant. Like, we are doing just fine.
Yes.
I'm full on stalking Jonathan Groff now, so that probably not great, but it's fine.
Well, we had mentioned talking about the afterlife.
Oh yeah.
You guys
Oh my
talk about the
gosh. Yes, let's
afterlife?
talk about the afterlife. Yes.
I had what?
No, go. That's
Okay.
that's just my body reacts.
No,
to the
you brought
afterlife.
this up
It's great.
while we were waiting for you, Bryce. He brought up a really, really cool book that you just got done reading. Is that right?
Yeah, I read it a few years ago, but it's called Proof of Heaven.
Oh wow.
And it's about the afterlife. It was aptly named title. The writer Ibn Alexander is a neurosurgeon, and he sets the book up to explain how little he believes in the afterlife, and how many of his patients have told him they've seen it under his knife, and he has very good reasons as to why they think that. And then he in real life got a debilitating illness that came on so suddenly that it put him in a coma, and he spent that coma in the afterlife. And he describes what it was like in great detail.
My God.
And as well as he can, really. He actually says something that's always stuck with me. He said, it's so hard to explain what it was like. Imagine if a chimpanzee was given the full brain capacity of a human for one day, and then had to get his chimpanzee brain back and had to go try to explain to other chimps what he had experienced.
Wow.
It's impossible. He says words are not equipped for the feeling, the energy, that we don't really have a word for this feeling. But it is a fascinating book, Proof of Heaven. The afterlife thing.
Love it. I'm always looking for something to read on the train.
God, I wonder how a chimpanzee would try to explain the human brain to his friends. Like, dude, let me talk about social media, this thing about social...
I can't even explain social media to my friends.
It's like explaining it to your parents, Mom. There's Instagram. There's Facebook. No, it's Facebook. Yeah, that's my mom.
Facebook.
Yeah, it's Facebook. And Instagram, according to my mom, is Instaque. That's my mom.
Hilarious. I love that.
Well, those are my thoughts on the after. I don't know if do you guys often talk about afterlife on this?
We've sort of touched on it, I think, especially in like that first episode, like your first experience with paranormal, and so I was raised very religiously, so there's a lot of like that kind of dogma, sort of like that I believe a lot of, and some of it I don't necessarily believe or know what to believe. I think I've experienced things that we growing up would have said were impossible. We weren't like a very Pentecostal kind of denomination of Christianity, so we didn't believe, even like we would have been pretty skeptical of people who talked a lot about like guardian angels or anything like that, saints, anything. We would have kind of shunned that sort of rhetoric, and certainly not ghosts, like absolutely not.
Oh yeah.
I, as an adult, have had to reconcile things that can't be explained by like we were talking about earlier, like my logic, or like, well, this must have been this. In particular, I saw the ghost of someone who had recently died, and it just was him. And I, like, as much as like my upbringing fought against that, like I knew what I saw, and it was him, and like the motion that he did and the hat he was wearing, and the sort of gesturing that he was doing towards a piece of this. He was a director, and I was working in a theater, and he was doing these things that were so just quintessential Roy, and then he just wasn't there. And, you know, I went through all the, like, I'm tired, I must not be seeing it, but it just, like, kept replaying in my mind. And I still don't exactly know what that means because, like, not to get super religious, but there's a verse in the Bible, and I think we've talked about this before, that says, like, to be absent from the body is to be, like, present with the Lord. And we use that to justify, like, there are no ghosts, and there's, you know, the good and bad sides of your decisions, and you are in the afterlife immediately upon dying. And we would even probably sort of balk against any kind of like, oh, I saw a white light, any of those kinds of things. But as an adult with like my own set of beliefs now, there are just so many things that I can't explain and that like are so corroborated, like you were saying with this book, that I think that we've touched on it. Sorry, that's a very long answer. We've touched on it, but I think because there is so many questions and because so many people have different experiences. Talking to David Oman last week.
Oh, yeah.
His experience is completely foreign to me. I have no concept for what he's experiencing on like a near daily basis or minutely basis.
Do you know anything about David Oman? I think I tried inviting you to his house for a ghost investigation when we were emailing each other because I was asking you about a paranormal experience you want to share. You're like, I don't have any. I'm like, well, I know that Bryce has a few. He would love to trade with you. But David Oman is a gentleman that lives 200 feet away from where the Sharon Tate Manson murders occurred. So where his house is built is over a geometric anomaly where the electric magnetic fields are so high it attracts a lot of energy and it attracts a lot of paranormal energy. So he has stated that he is in constant communication with the spirits of the victims of those murders of Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, Wojciech Frykowski, Abigail Folger, and Steve Parent. And according to him, the house also attracts other energies within that radius. So he's also in communication with Rudolph Valentino and Jean Harlow.
No shit.
Oh, yes, shit. And he opens his house up to ghost investigations for people who are skeptics, who are interested in learning more about the paranormal. But while we were at his house, we were experiencing things that we couldn't even explain.
Really?
So there's this thing with the figurines, and you can see it on his website too, and even on shows, because his house has been on a number of paranormal shows. So in his theater room, it's a very active room, and the spirits communicate by pushing forward these figurines of these Beetlejuice characters. And they just would knock him down.
I hate that movie too. I get it.
Yeah.
I saw it for the first time when I was 28, so it wasn't really.
It's not. Yeah.
Wasn't really doing it for me.
No.
I love Beetlejuice.
I like the music.
Yeah. Oh, and Danny Elfman.
I love Michael Keaton. But while we were watching footage in the theater of all this paranormal activity that he's collected, because his house is also rigged with a bunch of cameras. So he is collecting data 24/7. And while we were watching the video of these figurines being knocked forward, they were knocking them down while we were watching the video. So they're being very sassy ghosts. They're like, huh, you want to see this happen in real life? Here it goes. Boom.
Yeah.
And then every 15 minutes, boom. And David even mentioned to us, they don't do this back to back. They must really like you guys because we're not yelling like these people on the video. They're freaking out when this little figurine, pushes forward. And people flip out. And we're just like, oh, something fell forward. Yeah. And
so whatever that means, literally okay, well, something's happening.
But
it
I've
was on
seen
a very solid piece of furniture.
Oh, yeah.
And some of them he's nailed to pieces of wood because they fall over so much and they've broken over the years. And those were still falling down.
Oh yeah.
This doesn't make sense. It wasn't on you know what I mean, an IKEA table that's rickety and shaking. It's a solid hundreds of pounds mantle. It was very odd. I don't know. It was great. And he was so nice, and it was so nice of him to have us. But again, very long answer. No idea what the fuck was going on there.
I believe that. I believe there's an afterlife because
yeah.
I don't know. I had this. I had experienced something in this house that I cannot explain.
So do folks? So it's next door, or more or less to the.
It's
the
technically 2 doors away.
So you can kind of see that area and.
Oh yeah, it's a private drive, and he communicates with his neighbors hey, I'm having these people come and visit. Some of them just come on their own volition, and they just want to see the gate.
Really?
Yeah, because it's a private driveway,
right.
And from where her original gate stood, it was I want to say a block away from the entrance of the house is a block away from the actual house.
Yeah, but you can see it. I mean, it's very close.
Yeah, it's extremely close.
Ooh, before I forget, because I'm sure we're closing. The Damon Harriman, the fellow who's playing Manson for Mindhunter, was actually also cast by Tarantino in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to play Manson again.
No way.
And Tarantino, I don't think at that time knew that he was already doing it with Fincher for Mindhunter. So he comes for the audition, and you're like, oh, wow, that's a spot on Manson. Where'd you get that? But how cool is, like, because if you were to watch Mindhunter, you're going to see it and think, like, oh, how cool would it be to see this Manson out and about actually doing the things he did, and then the other way around, like, wouldn't it be cool to have this Manson be in Mindhunter? So you're going to get them both.
Love it.
I don't know if that's ever happened. I'm sure it had like a cross character world. Wow, that's really cool. And credit to him. I mean, it's a testament to how great he is. I've seen him in a thing or two. He's in a great small role in Breaking Bad, and he's just one of those actors who, no matter, if I have one scene, I'm gonna smash it.
Wow.
He's a sweet, well-spoken, well-kept fellow, but in Breaking Bad, you guys both seen that?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jesse and Mike go to this house, and they need to get these meth heads out of the house because they'd stolen their wares.
I remember that.
So Jesse starts digging with the shovel to get him out, and then he sneaks inside, and there's a fellow in there just freaking out with a shotgun, and he's just a train wreck. And it's Damon Harriman. He's a chameleon actor. I'm so excited to see what he brings to those.
I did not know that.
That's so great. So they actually, for the Quentin Tarantino movie, they film on location. They're on...
Do they?
Yeah.
Wow.
They filmed, Tarantino even managed to get every single make and model of the cars that were driven by the victims, by the family. I also have a girlfriend that worked in wardrobe, and she was telling me, like, all the stuff that was happening. Even, like, they shot at J. Sebring's salon.
Wow. Did you guys see Hateful Eight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little movie trivia here. So Jennifer Jason Leigh starts playing that guitar in the cabin.
Oh, yeah.
That guitar is a real, actual piece of history. That guitar was built in the 1800s. And it was in a museum. And Tarantino convinced them, please just let us carefully take it out of the museum and play it. Oh my God. And then we'll make an exact replica. No. And then we'll smash that exact replica against a pillar. Some communication snafus happened, and Kurt Russell was not aware they were working with the real guitar, and fully in the moment picks it up and smashes it into that pillar. You watch it smash into smithereens, and you actually get, if you're watching and you know that background, you can see Jennifer Jason Leigh. She just starts screaming, whoa, 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 and looking around the room, and you realize that that's not in character. She's completely dropped character, and she's looking over at Tarantino screaming, whoa, whoa, what's happening?
Cut!
And the museum was super pissed. They said it was irreparable and all that. But I'm a little disappointed in their perspective. I would have put that broken, shattered mess of a guitar back in a case, and then had a little video on a loop of Russell smashing it. That just only makes museum goers that much more interested. You could have a replica next to what it really looked like, but that guitar just became instantly cool. What's it going to sit in a case where nobody plays it? Now it's going to sit in a case and nobody's going to play it.
Yeah.
Then it's going to have an interesting story behind it. But they didn't try to piece it back together.
Oh, wow. They just got rid of it.
Yeah, I guess. I'm so bummed about that.
Yeah, that is kind of a bummer.
I'd like a piece of that.
Yeah.
Could have at least tried to put it together.
Netflix.
Dear Tarantino.
Yeah.
Should we bring this to a close then?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thank you so much, Cameron, for gracing us with your presence.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you for the pizza and the LaCroix.
Oh, it was perfection. We had Cameron Britton. We had LaCroix. We had pizza. What else? Great conversation.
What else is there?
Yeah.
We're going to have to do another one about Groff, just a full
Can
Groff
we?
talk. I didn't get to cover my...
Oh, my God.
It's a 10-part mini-series.
Yeah.
Can we get Groff here?
We honestly, that is how I'll leave this apartment. A ghost or Jonathan Groff walks through that door. Like, no, I'm not doing this. No.
Where can everyone find you, Cameron, on Twitter and on Instagram, Facebook? Do you have any handles you want to share? You're like, I really don't tweet.
Pretty easy to find me on it. I don't
just
remember
like, just
the
Google
exact
me.
handles, actually. I think Twitter and Instagram are like Cameron Britton H or something. But it's a picture of me looking quite serious in this black jacket with a nice haircut. I'm on there. I'm verified, so it'll make it easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we wanted to also make this our last episode for season 2. We are going to be taking a break. Season 2 break, because we need it, and it's good for our health. Plus, we'll be, working a lot in December. I'll be very busy and traveling, so don't worry. We'll be back in January with more interviews and more awesome stories. The true crime and the booze and everything. But remember to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Hollyweird Paranormal and on Twitter at HWP Podcast. And you can listen to our episodes and past episodes on iTunes, Google Play, CastBox, Blueberry, Spotify, SoundCloud, and wherever you get your podcast fix. All right. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
Yay. Now, can you text Jonathan Groff for us?
Oh my God. Bye.
Well, guys, that is our season 2 finale, but don't fret, we'll be back in early January. If you follow us on all of our social media, then you'll be in the loop with when we're going to start with our season 3, and it's going to get even better, guys. So we wanted to take the time to thank a couple of people who made season 2 phenomenal. We wanted to take the time to thank Pasadena Playhouse, Callie Mazariego, David Oman, and Cameron Britton for taking the time to sit with us and speak with us and work with us, share spooky tales and tales of true crime. But most of all, we wanted to thank you all of our listeners who've been with us since the very beginning. We know who you are, our boos, and to those who just jumped onto this crazy Hollyweird train with us. It's been an amazing journey, and it's going to get even crazier with season 3 approaching. So we wanted to take the time and just say thank you for tuning in, thank you for being Hollyweird, and most of all, thank you for being our boos. Okay, till next time, guys, always remember, stay Hollyweird.